Welcome to the Cash Confident Podcast. I'm Bri Sedano, your fearless host, personal finance expert, and the visionary behind the revolutionary Cash Confident community. Happy New Year, everybody. It is 2024, and we are here again for the Cash Confident Podcast with Bri Sedano. And today's topic is all about goal setting, getting those money goals right for 2024. And so I'm excited to talk about this because I will tell you that dry, boring, sad, must do, should do sorts of money goals almost never get done. They're just hard to do. All right. So I'm going to give you some tips and some things to think about for your goals and just a few different ways to look at it. And I know that there is some common wisdom out there about goals that are SMART. What is it? Specific, measurable, attainable, time constrained, and is that it? I might have missed a letter. And I will tell you that is my least favorite way to set goals. And the reason for that is it's just a very, very one-sided, kind of unbalanced toward the masculine way to set goals. Now, listen, if it's working for you, carry on. But for a lot of the people that I work with, those kinds of goals add a lot of pressure, they add a lot of time urgency, they add a lot of financial urgency, and even when you get maybe 99% of the way there, you can still feel like a failure. It's a very like pass, fail kind of goal setting. Additionally, I will tell you this, is that I like goals that are unrealistic, and I like goals that happen way faster than is logical and makes sense, and I like goals that are, I guess, specific enough. I do like to be specific. Anyways, so I'm going to just go through some of the different ways that you can look at setting goals for your finances. And then I'm going to talk to business owners too in this, because there's some places that business owners could probably set goals in a way that's a little juicier, a little bit more fun to do. So the first thing that I want to say about setting goals is that our goals should really be tied to the desire and the lifestyle that we actually want. All right. So true desire is this place where we're kind of being led by life a little bit, where desires aren't just ours. It's like how life, uses us to co-create, right? That's part of that's part of the magic of desire. And I noticed that when people are really doing something that they really, really, they have like a burning yearning for, they're so much more likely to get it done than when it's like this goal that's, just looked good on paper, or it feels exactly just like the logical next step or whatever. So I would highly encourage you to really think about, like, what do I want to be better or different in my life? Like, and sometimes with desires, sometimes we don't exactly know what we do want, but we do know what we don't want. And that's an okay place to be. So, even if you're grabbing a sheet of paper and you're writing like what I don't want, what I do want, like let's say if one of your goals is to like get a different job or to upgrade your business in some way, and you're like, well, these are the things I don't like. Let me use that information to fine tune what I do want. All right. And I will tell you that desires are not things that feel like should do's, must do's, habits. Most of the time habits are systems. And we'll talk about that actually next. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is tell yourself the truth about what it is you want. And I would so deeply encourage you to do this, because when you're when there is like a radical self-honesty about what you want, there is a level of momentum that comes from that, the kind of decision that is really just interesting and full of momentum. So that would be the first thing. And then actually, I'm going to give you just a framework for setting goals around desire. And it's called the be, do, have, right? And I'm not the first, this is not my idea. I'm certainly not the first person that you're going to hear about talking about this, but I like setting my goals this way, the be, do, have, because it's just a more holistic approach. So let's just say I wanted to, have the opportunity, like have that top of the mountain view, right? Well, then I have to become somebody who climbs a mountain. I have to be that person, and that may mean that I need to do some training, or I need to buy the right hiking boots, and I need to, plan the hike, and I need to do whatever else. And then I get to have that view. And in that case, in this example, it's, an experience. It's not necessarily a material item, but a lot of times we don't look at who we would have to become or what we would have to do to get the goal that we want. And I think that's really where people misestimate any levels of resistance or incongruity to that. So a big goal is probably going to scare the shit out of you at least a little bit. And when we really look at like, well, who would I need to become? And that may even mean like, well, what aspects of myself would I need to let go of, or what needs to change, or what needs to be different? Then we do the work, but we don't embody it, and it just doesn't exactly make sense. And you cannot outwork, you cannot out hustle like energy that's incongruent to what you're doing, right? Like if I don't become that hiker, I'm probably not going to get to the top of the mountain. Like I need to be that person, right? And it's not the same thing as just doing the thing. It's a little bit more of on the identity, right? So when we look at these things, so it's at an identity level, and then it's at an action level, and then it's like the focused desire. So I love be, do, have goals. And if you really, grab your journal and really, really think about that, you can even start to see if there's a gap, if you're like, wow, I would have to really be the hiker. And like currently I am 100% not a hiker. I'm not a hiker. I don't have hiking stuff. I don't go for hikes. I barely go for walks. You know, it's a thing. Well, then that's going to be I'm going to start to see that gap. And then I can adjust for that. Well, do I actually really want this? Do I actually really want to be a hiker? And this in this example, it might just be a little silly, but this is a thing for business. Like I'll give you an example. So one of the things that I had been working on was growing my audience. And I got to this place where I was like, oh, I want to have this, amount of followers across my platforms. And that means I have to do, I have to create this amount of content, and I have to do real strategies, and I have to do this, and I have to do this. And then I'm like, and what would I have to be? I would have to like be, I mean, not like actually famous, but like, internet famous, low grade famous, right? And when I started really looking at that do list, I was like, I actually don't want to do a lot of that stuff. I haven't made reels in quite some time. It's my least favorite kind of content to make. And one of the things that I did do was like, I want to help people, right? Like when I looked at like what I have is that audience growth, but it's not just like the number of followers. That's a vanity metric. It's like, I want to have relationship with people. I want to help them with their money, and I want to have enough time and space in their reality, in your reality, to be able to actually do that. And when I looked at my do strategies of like making 7-second reels, right? I was like, that's not enough time or space for me to actually accomplish that goal. So it felt incongruent, right? And I was like, okay. So the funny thing is, then I started this podcast, which is now actually currently in just about the top 10% of podcasts and growing every day. So let's just take a second and just thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing with your friends. Thank you for the reviews. If you haven't reviewed my podcast, please do. But that be, do, you have, like I could see the incongruencies, and I could see the places where I actually didn't want to do what it would take. And so I had to really examine that and see, there's this gap here. And there was another gap really around being seen, right? Like really showing up at that next level and really exposing myself to more judgment and more just audience, right? And that was a place that I had to be like, oh my goodness, I really need to grow into that. That's a thing that it's uncomfortable for me, right? And that next level of my identity, of being seen, of being out there a little bit more, that's something that I need to practice with. I need to get comfortable in that new setting, right? And so that was another place there was a gap. And so I think when we do our be, do, have goals, and we just write down like, ooh, all right, well, if I want this, I want to have this, I want to have this experience, or I want to have this amount of clients or this amount of money. Well, what do I need to do? And then you can even question those things like, is this all true? But really it comes down to, who do I need to be? What do I need to embody? What what aspects of myself need to come to the forefront? What aspects of myself need to take the back burner? And I think that's just a much more holistic way of looking at it. And it's also a little bit more balanced to the masculine and feminine. So those do goals are going to be the masculine, is going to be the action taking goals. But then there's that feminine part of who am I being, right? And when those two things come together, who am I being and what am I doing? Then we can see the result of that with laser focus. So I really, really love that, because when many people have goals that are just imbalanced toward the masculine, and they're very pass fail. Like, did you make this amount of money or did you not? Did you pass or did you fail? Did you either succeeded or you didn't, right? And while sometimes that level of clarity is great, sometimes it can be a little harsh, and sometimes we can end up taking a lot of action while not being who we want, like, while not being embodied, and it doesn't work as well. Right? So when you're being the person that has the thing that you're going for and you're taking the actions, you're going to be much more in alignment. It's like the effort is just going to go further energetically. So the be, do, have. I think that's my preferred method of goal setting. And then from there, you can start to look at the gap. Now, when people talk about their money, a lot of times people have goals that are really systems and habits. Like either they need to build out a financial system or they need to install a financial habit. And for those things, those are to me, they're less of a goal and they're more of just like a one-time action. And while you can put that on your to-do list, it's not like a big achievement necessarily to just do the thing. So let's just say you want to start to save some money. Well, just open the account and set up the direct deposit. Like, that's how to do it. Like, it's the funniest thing. People ask me all the time, they're like, how do you save money? And I'm like, well, you put the money in your savings account and then you don't spend it. Which is it really, it's that simple. And also it's not that simple. There's more to it. There is. But the thing is when we start to look at our systems, so when we're setting up our systems, we want to have money to pay our bills and to be prepared and, to spend and to upgrade our lifestyle and to invest. And some of those things we really want to build as habits. So most of what we can do is just get started wherever we are. Right. So if you wanted to start investing, start your retirement accounts, just open up the accounts and just get started with an amount of money that feels okay for you. And then put a note on your calendar or in your phone that every month you reevaluate it and see if you could increase it by even just $1, even whatever, it doesn't matter. Because once you're doing the things, you start to see the progress and something really, really wonderful happens from that. So if you have goals like to save more money or to be prepared or to get out of credit card debt, or to start to be an investor, just put your plan in place and then just get started taking the small actions and don't put a ton of thought or energy into it, right? Like it's especially the debt, right? Like just take the actions, put your plan in place. And then and then just kind of make your moves. Just make your moves. All right. So that's systems. If your goals are systems or habits, those kind of goals. And I would say also, I'm going to talk a little bit more about debt. Debt is a goal of decrease, right? And so it's not a goal of increase. And I want to be very, very clear because people come to see me with the goal of paying off their debt. And I want to tell you very, very clearly that paying off your debt is not required to build wealth. It is not required. You do not have to pay off your debt before you can start investing. In fact, I think that is the worst and most damaging advice that is very, very mainstream about money. Especially if you're, not in your teenage or maybe even early 20s. Like if you're in your early 20s and you have some debt and you want to pay it off, okay. All right. But if you're getting into your later 20s or your 30s and you're not saving, you're not investing, and you're just so you can pay off your credit card debt, it is detrimental to your financial well-being. But where I want to talk about the goal of decrease is that most of the time they don't work because we focus on it so hard that we increase the debt. And this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like in real life is people will come see me and they've had the goal of paying off their credit card debt for a long time. And this is the mental process. So then they're like, well, the interest really bothers me. And so then they're taking out a 0% balance transfer to move their credit cards to. and that looks like it's a good idea on paper, but if they don't address the habits and they don't address, their mindset, and they don't address what's underneath that, they move the credit card balance from their credit card that they have an established habit of spending with to an empty credit card. And they usually will leave that one at home. They'll leave the new credit card in the drawer. And so them and their old credit card will go out, only now they have no balance. Fast forward a year or two and they've doubled the size of their debt. That's what I've seen happen. And then they've done that once or twice, and then they'll take out a 401k loan or a personal loan to consolidate all the debts. And then if that doesn't work, then the next step is to take out a home equity loan. I've seen that happen many times. And then all of a sudden, 2-3 decades has gone by and their debt is way bigger than it was when they started. So what I suggest is, if one of your goals is to pay off a debt, is to really build your savings habits, to get your financial systems in place, to get your habits in place, to look at whatever the underlying cause of that debt is. And I will tell you, from the people that I've worked with and what I've seen, it's very rarely reckless overspending. Most of the time it's being unprepared for, maintenance or emergencies. And a lot of it's not even emergencies. It's like being unprepared for regular expenses and maintenance that are just not regular bills. Like, I had to fix my car for $2,000, or, I needed a new roof, or I needed this thing, my dishwasher broke, and I just was unprepared for those kind of things, even though I knew my dishwasher was 26 years old, or even though I knew my car was due for the maintenance that happens at 120,000 miles. That's like a big maintenance, right? Like, those are the kinds of things. So when you're having that goal of decrease, what I would suggest doing is putting your plan in place and making your payments, and really, really shifting your focus toward what else is going on. Because what you focus on grows. And when people have so much focus on their debt, it just grows. That's what happens. So really shift that. And then also, if your goal is to be debt-free, honestly, I wouldn't even have that as a goal, because here's the thing, is when that goal gets met, if you don't really very consciously reprogram yourself to have a new goal, what ends up happening is you put the debt back on because now you've reached that goal, but the goal is still there. And then you just put the credit card debt back on to have to pay it off again. I call it yo-yo debt, and it's a remarkably common phenomenon. The same thing happens with diets. It's like people lose the weight and then they gain the weight right back, because they're really setting their having a goal of decrease is somewhat energetically unnatural. So obviously, I want you to pay off your debt. I want you to be, I want your cash flow to be free. I want that to be going well for you. And the best way to do that is to really look at your debt, get your plan in place, how much you're going to pay towards it, what order your payments are going to go. Get solid on that, make your payments, do what needs to be done. But I would very intentionally work on building my savings habits, getting my spending habits under control, getting my mindset in the right place. Really building financial strength, so that way I don't need to use those credit cards, and really work on shifting those habits and everything that's there. And then really work on building wealth, because being debt free, when somebody says I want to be debt free, all that means to me is you're at a zero. You're at zero. You're not wealthy because you're debt free. It's not an indication of wealth. That's not an indication of financial well-being, although it could be. You can be over leveraged with debt, and it can be really problematic to your cash flow and to your life. And so I get that, but being debt free is not the same thing as financial health, and it is not the same thing as wealth, and it is not the same thing as building wealth. So let's just be clear about that. All right, that's what I have to say about that. All right, so the next thing that I want you to think about when you're setting your money goals and your financial goals is about lifestyle. What are the places where you want to increase your lifestyle? Or maybe some places you want to decrease your lifestyle, or some places where a decrease may be an increase. Like if your kids, all moved out of the house and now you don't want to spend all your money on this big house and a big yard, and you want something, a little townhouse or something like that. That could be a decrease that's actually an increase. Free up your cash flow. So ponder about your lifestyle. What are the things that you want? What are the things that you want to be different? When you think about your space, or your cars or your material items, or even just what you want to do with your time, your energy. Really ponder on those things as you start to set your financial goals, because a lot of times these things need to be funded to be able to be done. And the thing that's really important is when we have lifestyle goals that are super true and super, we really want them, we're so much more likely to make the decisions in congruence with that than when our goals are just, I want to put more money into my 401k, which also is a great goal, but it's not really a goal. It's just a thing where, like, all right, you just adjust your habit ever so slightly. Instead of putting in 5%, you put in 5.5%, or you put in the 6%, or you put in whatever it takes to get the match. But it's not really a goal, because it's just like you log in to your computer and you just set the new amount, right? All right, so lifestyle goals, that's going to be a thing. And we just did talk about desires, but they're, that you want the lifestyle goals to be things that you actually really want, that are important to you, that like get your heart pumping, that feel juicy and alive. All right. And so I'm going to talk to business owners now, because there's just some interesting things I see with business owners. So a lot of times with business owners, there's a lot of revenue goals where people are really looking at revenue and they're really growing their revenue. And that is wonderful and that is important. But I would encourage you to set business goals that are revenue, profit, and salary, or depending on how you take your money out of the business, it might not be like a payroll, but like what you want to take home, your distributions or your paychecks, because those three numbers are very, very different, and you can grow your revenue quite a bit while decreasing your profit, and you can grow your revenue quite a bit while still not taking much money home. Actually, I will tell you, I had a client who she worked with me in Limitless Wealth a while ago, and we were looking at her numbers, and I was seeing like that that she was making a lot of money. I mean, she was, making like $500,000 a year, and really only being able to take home like $4,000, which was not really to the level that she was really pinching pennies in her lifestyle. And we had to look at that, because I was like, well, we could work on growing revenue. We could, but I'm like, really, you're already making the money. It's just your expenses around certain things are super high, and so there's no money for you to take home. So we redirected the money that was already in her business, and it took a few months, because there were big adjustments to her business that needed to be done. But within maybe 9 or 10 months, she was taking home $15,000 a month, which was really much more to her lifestyle, even though her revenue grew. Her revenue grew during our work, but we weren't really focused on that. We were really focused on increasing her profitability and increasing the amount of money that she was able to take home. And so I think it's worth it for you to really distinguish those things for yourself. Because if you don't, chasing revenue is like chasing the dragon. It just doesn't work. It will never be enough. You'd be amazed at how easy it is to spend $500,000. Like, it's just not that hard when you have a business. So really looking at like what you want your profit margins to be and what you want your salary or your take home distributions to be is the thing that's really, really important. So these are some things that we want to be looking at when we are setting our goals for the new year, and really starting to like feel into how good it's going to be and how much fun it's going to be. And really like playing with like what you're going to do with your life because your money is sorted out. I think that's a piece to that, where sometimes people get really fixated on the cash and the amounts or the dollars, that they forget that they're putting their money toward, this vacation, or toward this, new endeavor, or toward, having the resources available to quit their jobs, or, even just when you're saving, like even really just focusing on the stability that you're going to have from your money. So these are some of my ideas and some of my tips for, big picture goal setting for next year. And I hope that this was helpful. I hope you have a few ideas, and I would love to hear what some of your be, do, and have goals are. And so you can send me an email or send me a message in my DMs on my Facebook or Instagram. And I don't always get to respond to every single one, but I do read I do read everything that comes into my, I do read or listen to everything that comes into my world. So I love you. I appreciate you. I cannot wait for 2024. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Happy New Year, everybody.